Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time seeing my channel, appreciate you joining in. Today, we're going to be installing Annex suspension on my GR Corolla. Took about 3.5 or so months for the suspension to come in. I've been waiting for a little while here, but I've heard great things, and yeah, without further ado, we're going to get started. So, first things first, before we move on with the video, take a quick pause here, and I'll put up the tools that were needed to do this install, so that you, hopefully, can save a little bit of time. And after that, we'll get right into it, so stay tuned. So, first things first, I'm going to go ahead and remove 3 pop rivets, or not pop rivets, but the little plastic guys. 4, I should say, actually. You got one right here, you got another right there, another right there, and then a final one on the end there. Okay, next up after that, you're going to want to take off the little covers you have for your windshield wipers. I believe this is going to be like a 14. We'll see, but anyways, you're going to take both of those off. That way you can get this cowl off. So once you get the cowl off, the next thing is going to be getting this brace piece that goes all the way across off. So obviously, this is where you're going to match up the top end plate pieces of the front suspension. And you're just going to need to be able to basically remove what's underneath here to then replace it. These are also 14 millimeters, so keep that in mind. And you're probably going to have to loosen this guy, or just disconnect to, be able to get the piece off. A quick update. We had to take off the remaining kind of apparatus related to the windshield wipers. Pretty easy to get off. It's 2 bolts, 2 14 millimeters, I believe, either 14 or 10. And then that allowed us to reach, the back bolt here and this guy right here. So we got this side, technically done. However, you'll see here there are kind of a line of 10 mil that you need to take off the back, as well as the other side here. So, just minor update. now that we've gotten the cowl off, everything's exposed up here, next step is going to be to make sure we're prepped down in the wheel well. So in the instructions they'll tell you that you should hold this up with ratchet straps or something. I'm gonna be honest, I'm just gonna put one of these guys underneath, call it good. But the issue is potentially your axle boot might kind of pop out here, and then you'd have to deal with making sure it gets back in and it's all good to go. So to prevent that, you want something weight bearing underneath the suspension components here, so keep that in mind. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so you missed it, but we got these two nuts off of these bolts. Don't be a dumbass, make sure you're taking the nut off the bolt, otherwise you're going to have a really bad time. Exhibit A, I don't know if you can tell, yeah, you should be able to, it's not straight anymore. And then we got another one that we snapped, because, a little bit of a dummy. But anyways, let's go ahead and take those out. I used an impact gun. You may not have to use an impact gun, but they're in there pretty good, so just be patient, do your best to not damage the threads and all that. So anyways, moving on to the next part, we're going to disassemble a little bit more of the bits and pieces that are attaching our little coilover setup so that we can take it out and then replace it. Really quick, the nuts and the bolt itself, they are both going to be 22s, so 22 millimeters. And this guy up here, I think, was like a 17, if I remember correctly. So I'll post it, on the video right now if it's wrong, but I believe that's what it was. Yep, we're back at the top underneath our hood here, and we're going to take whatever remains up top here. So it looks like one 14 mil on this side, and then one over on that side as well, and then we might have to go underneath again and get the last two out. Here you take this sensor right here out. So it goes in right here. Basically, there's a little 10 mil bolt that'll hold it in. Make sure you take it out because you're going to want to swing all of this forward so that you can then move this guy down and out. One final note, took the 14 mil that was on this, and this was attached, and there was a bolt threaded through right here. We wanted to take that out just to make it easier to take the brake line off of the little mount here, and also the little wire we have, I assume, for like ABS or something, whatever it might be, and make sure, you know, that this doesn't get caught as this kind of falls once you get the final bolt out on top, because, you know, it will fall, and you just want to make sure you're not snagging your wires and messing them up. So. For awareness, here is the old setup and the new setup side by side. One thing I noticed right off the bat, the new coilovers are significantly lighter than the stock suspension component, so that's pretty cool. And it looks like, you know, everything that we're hoping for is kind of built in here. Might be a little bit hard to see from this angle. I'll just take the camera out real quick. You can see we have the same kind of built-in stuff here that was on the stock piece to make sure that we can put our wires back to where they were and everything, which is great. And then, yeah, I mean, everything lines up, so pretty good stuff. So we got the front passenger side just about done here. Just got to tighten up the bolts and whatnot. Just remember, of course, to put everything back where it was, i.e. you have your wire was connecting in, going to what I assume was ABS or something. That, make sure that, you know, you route it correctly. You put a little plastic tab back where it was. Make sure you put this bolt back in, tighten it down, of course. Make sure you put your brake line back inside of the little hook divot there for it. And you want to make sure that you actually have this on the other side too, so that's something I still need to do. Anyways, make sure that's all lined up and good to go. When it comes to getting everything together here, right, a little bit tricky, but not too bad. So what you want to do is you want to get the suspension geometry up in here, right? What I did was I got the little sway bar end link in first, and then after that I went ahead and pushed this guy up so that I could get the two main bolts back in here for the knuckle, and then after that you can worry about making sure it's seated properly up here. When you have the knuckle and sway bar end link in, what I did was I took a secondary jack, put it up underneath the rotor, and started slowly lifting the rotor. When you lift the rotor, it's going to lift the whole assembly, and that'll help you while kind of guiding it and, you know, maybe spotting up above, fit the three bolt threads and make sure that they're kind of sticking through the holes and that they're guiding properly. So that's how I did it. I feel like that's probably the easiest way. That way you're not fighting with the sway bar end link after the fact, because it's going to want to go up higher than this and you're going to have to push it down, and that's a pain. So just keep that in mind. One other thing, I was wrong when I initially made this assessment. I'm a little bit of a dummy. Basically what will happen is, obviously, when you take these bolts out, this will swing forward a little bit. When you swing it forward, the CVT or the axle kind of assembly over here potentially can come loose. For me, that's essentially what happened. It didn't fully fall apart or anything, but I did have to kind of manhandle this and, you know, kind of move it around a little bit while pushing back until it kind of, you know, popped back into place, so to speak. You'll know if that is the case because what will happen is you won't be able to raise this straight up anymore, and you won't be able to get this top bolt in. So if that happens, you need to kind of wiggle it around, manhandle it a little bit, and get it back in there. That's it, guys. So I didn't show you the process going through this side. I am going to record the other side just so that we can have, you know, maybe some hands-on of me doing it. But overall, not too bad. So pro tip here, before you get everything torqued down to spec and whatnot, which by the way is 200 for these bolts, 55 for this guy. Also you'll need an Allen key set to make sure that you can actually turn it back on to the end link. And this guy, I don't remember, but you know, just make sure it's tight. That one's a little bit less of a big deal. Anyways, before you torque all these down, you're going to want to make sure that the suspension setup is giving you the ride height that you're looking for, right? With the Annex suspension, as I kind of mentioned earlier, the way that you're going to be able to adjust the ride height is going to be by adjusting the bottom piece of the coilover apparatus here, which obviously you can't do when it's hooked in. So find a height that you think is roughly what you're looking for, and then after that, what you're going to want to do is put it all together. Don't torque things down. Put the wheel on, set it all down, and then see what the wheel gap looks like, all that, right? And if it's more than you'd like, bring it back up, undo these guys, and then make sure you're adjusting as needed there. So just something to keep in mind. You might have to mess with that a bit. Okay, so we got the front completely done now. We're working on the back. Sun's out, so it's getting hot as hell now. Front's not too bad once you know what you're doing. The rear, I'm figuring it out now, but essentially it's looking like there's a bolt right here that we want to take off to get the spring out. There's a bolt, hopefully it'll focus. There's a bolt underneath the shaft here that we're gonna have to get out. Or sorry, not underneath the shaft, right here behind the God, words are hard. Behind the shock. Yeah, behind the shock. And that's what we're gonna have to get out. That's probably gonna be the worst part of this entire experience. And then there's two more bolts up top here that we'll take off, and we should be good. Alright, so We got the 17 millimeters that were up there out. We got the 22 millimeter that was on here out, which actually wasn't torqued down crazy. I was able to just get it out with a crescent wrench. The eyelet portion of the shock back here out. Best way I found to do it is take a crescent wrench. It's going to be a 22, and basically you can get this wrench between these two pieces here, and that'll give you a whole bunch of room to bring the wrench up and get it into place and basically rotate all the way through. So that's what I'd recommend doing. Make your life a whole lot easier because you have a lot of room back here. But, yeah. Next up here, we may need to, well, here's what I want to do. I don't want to have to take any more of the suspension geometry apart. So if I can just take off the wheel well kind of cover here, then I can bring this guy forward towards me, and then I'll get enough angle to finally fully push this guy out, because that's my problem right now. Just trying to push more and it's not going because this needs to come out of where it's at. So anyways, more to follow. So minor update here. These guys just come out by twisting them. They're, you know, just kind of there to do the bare minimum. So we got a couple out. We pulled this forward a bit. That gave us the room to pull the shock out of the way. Sorry, I'm dying a little bit. Pull the shock out of the way. And then we still couldn't get exactly the play we were looking for down here. So not the best way to do it, but I took a mallet and I was kind of trying to gently get the shock to nudge as gently as I could, really. And we did. We got the shock off, and now we're here. So next up, it looks like we're reusing the factory top hat, this aluminum piece. So we're gonna have to get this nut off, and then we'll go ahead and take this off, put it on the new rear shocks, and reinstall everything. Okay, so there was some assembly required for the shock. Biggest things to note: the rubber kind of protector that we have here, you're not going to need. You're also not going to need the rubber, styrofoamy, whatever this is, piece inside of it. Reason being, the protection that you're afforded is actually going to be on this end. There's a little, basically, thing of this material that's inside of the rubber section here. So this is what it should look like. Manual is a little bit confusing, but the pictures kind of helped guide it. Just make sure, obviously, you torque it down, and yeah, you should be good to go after that. Here's another update. The rear is seemingly much harder than the front. We having trouble getting the shock eyelet back on that bolt, and also getting it in there at the same time, even when we tried to shorten the shock up significantly. So now we're probably dropping part of the knuckle that was in the way to allow us to more easily get access in there. Ready?
All right, the update. Do have to loosen the top knuckle bolt to drop it far down enough where you can slide the coilover onto the bolt down here in the back.
Yep.
If you don't do that, what's gonna happen is you're gonna be over here at this angle, not being able to go down or back or anywhere with the bottom piece of the shock. Right. So you need to take this off to loosen it down and have enough leverage.
Makes sense. So, as a heads up, when you are doing the rears, you will want to bring your locking ring as far down as possible. I mean, it doesn't have to be all the way, but you're going to want to do it significantly so it's out of the way. If you are completely new to coilovers like I am, you may have some confusion based off of the manual. Basically, you will be able to adjust these when you've installed them. You're just going to be turning this and the hat at the top, the aluminum hat, you know, that you saw earlier on the other side. Now we're installing this side. that hat will stay static. And then, you know, it's not a big deal. You might have to fix this a little bit as you turn. It might get twisted and then untwisted and so on and so forth. So anyways, just keep all that in mind. Be way easier on you to, you know, just twist this when it's already in, and that way you can add some pre-compression to the spring. You don't have to follow my specs exactly, but just counting threads here, you know, I had about 43 threads left. 44 threads, sorry, 44 threads left overall underneath my locking ring when I was kind of fully compressed where I wanted to be. And then when it came to the hat for the spring itself, there were 23 threads that were showing above the top of the spring itself. So we extended it out a little bit, that way we could get some pre-compression. And doing that, you know, I did get a little bit of a lower ride height than stock. So anyways, that worked for me, might work for you. You might want to play with it a little bit. Either way, that's kind of where we're at. So